Good morning, everybody. I think we have everyone. Stephen Lewis, I'm just waiting for you. Good morning, and welcome to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Ottawa under the Planning Act. This video conference is also live streaming on YouTube. With me are my fellow panel members, Jocelyn Chandler, Stephen Lewis, Terrence Otto, and Martin Vervoort. My name is Fabian Poulin, and I will be chairing this hearing today. The procedure for this hearing will be as follows. Listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen are the applications we will hear today. For the sake of efficiency, the committee may deal with agenda items in a different order. Committee members have reviewed the planning reports and any written submissions in support or in opposition of each of the applications. Today, we'll hear oral submissions from any interested parties. Notice regarding Martin's variance applications, notwithstanding pre-consultation with city staff, is the responsibility of the applicant to identify all required variances accurately on the application to one, add a new variance or increase the extent of a variance requested. This must be given in accordance with the Planning Act and may require the application to be recirculated for the next hearing date at a cost to the applicant at the prescribed fee. If an applicant amends their plans with no impact to the variances or to reduce the variance requested, recirculation may not be required. As part of the statutory notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property and file a statutory declaration confirming the sign posting. This declaration must be on file today before we can hear the application. Without it, I may have to adjourn the application or administer an oath if necessary. Can the coordinator confirm that we have received all the statutory declarations?
Mr. Chair, we've received the statutory declaration for item number 11, Frank Kenny Road. It was issued at the last hearing. All other items will need the oath read.
Thank you very much, Madam Coordinator. All right. The committee may ask for a brief presentation of the application followed by questions from members and submissions from the public. Please address your comments to the chair, starting with your name and spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. The committee limits presentations to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at the discretion of the chair. Before we begin, we have one item of business to address. Does any member present need to declare any interest in any of the applications that are before us today or that are on the agenda of another committee panel? We have no declarations of interest. We will now hear the application scheduled for this hearing, and we'll first deal with any items that may be adjourned. I understand we have three applications are requesting adjournments, items number 4, 5, and 7. If there are any others, please let us know if your application would like to be adjourned. Application number 4 has to do with 4993 Rockdale Road. Mr. Fernandez de Villa, are you available? I see you. Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Fernandez.
Good morning.
Would you like to have your application adjourned today?
Yes, there was a couple of concerns raised by the planning department, and we'd like the time to address those so that we can proceed without problems. The next, we were suggesting the meeting of the 2nd of March. I'm not sure what the planning department's view on that is.
Mr. Harrigan, you have any comments?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, the planning department would be agreeable to March 2nd as an adjournment date. We had originally requested the next available hearing, which would be February 16th, but we would be agreeable to the applicant's request for about 30 days, just because we'd like to have some additional discussions about some environmental concerns with the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Harrigan. So I'd like to ask the panel if they're in agreement to adjourn this application to March the 2nd. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application, Mr. Fernandez de Villa, is adjourned until March the 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now moving on to application number 5, also looking for an adjournment. This has to do with 2170 Ottawa Road 29. Ms. Zander, are you available?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members.
Good morning, Ms. Zander. Do you wish to have your application adjourned today?
I would not wish to have it adjourned. My client and I are both here today and would like an opportunity to discuss this application with the committee, and we've provided some photographs and things, so we'd like to proceed with the discussion if the committee is agreeable.
Okay. Mr. Gordon, do you have any comments from the city on the adjournment request?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, planning has requested the adjournment because we have concerns both about the size of the proposed lot and that the lot lines bisect valley lands that protect a water course, which is not consistent with the official plan.
Okay. So panel, I'd like to ask if you'd like to hear this application. All those in favor of hearing the application today, please raise your hands. Your application will be heard in order. Ms. Zander, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, I believe application number 7 is also looking for an adjournment. This has to do with 7615 Soldiers Line Road. Mr. Shipman, are you available? You're muted, Mr. Shipman. There we go, I think.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. Are you looking to have your application adjourned today?
Mr. Chair, we would agree to adjourn on 0526 pending comments from Hydro One, which have not come in. We will reach out to them in that regard. We figure it's a very minor thing, but in the interest of completing this, we'll agree to adjourn that one. On 525, I don't believe there's any reason, any valid reason to adjourn there. It's around an existing house, and the concerns raised, in my view, do not impact that application.
Mr. Gordon, can you comment on behalf of planning on item number 525?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, planning's cause for concern is that we haven't received comments from Hydro One. We received comments from Hydro Ottawa. The Hydro Ottawa comments mostly are concerned with servicing the new lots, which is, they've expressed no concern, but Hydro One has some large towers that are constructed on an easement that crosses this property. So the concern is that given the scale of the towers, there may be additional setbacks that extend beyond the easement. So our concern is about the developability of the lots. The concern is that depending on Hydro's requirements, those lot lines may need to be adjusted.
Okay, so I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to adjourn item 0526. When would you like to have that adjourned to, Mr. Shipman?
Question, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure.
Are those easements on the hydro towers going to affect both lots, Mr. Gordon, or just the one?
Through the chair, the easement extends across at least 2 of the lots, and I believe it's just on the corner of the 3rd lot. I would ask Mr. Shipman to confirm that after. Now, it could have wider impacts if we get into a situation where lot lines had to be adjusted, then it could start impacting all 3 lots.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Yes, the one that we're agreeing to adjournment on, the easement impacts the entire frontage of that lot. There is substantial depth beyond the easement. We're talking 150 to 170 meters of lot depth beyond the easement on that lot. Nonetheless, we've agreed to adjourn that one. In respect to 525, very minor, if you can see the sketch, a very minor impact on the front southeast corner of that lot, very, very minor. And this severance is around an existing house that's already there. So any concerns in respect to that easement, I do not think have no impact on this proposal. Insofar as the retained parcel goes, it's huge, in excess of 19 hectares with frontage with over 137 meters of retained frontage. So there would be more than adequate room. There's no considerable restrictions on the retained parcel at all. There'd be more than adequate room on that one to develop. So my point is, I guess that 525, there is no reason to adjourn it. It wouldn't be impacted by the results of the severance that we are adjourning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shipman. I'd like to ask the panel to, what date would you like to have the, sorry, you go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, that's where I was. And how long will it take to know? If it's just 2 weeks, we might be better to hear it as a package. I don't know. How long will it take to get these Ontario Hydro's comments? Anybody know?
Mr. Chair, based on past experience, I don't hold out a heck of a lot of hope that outside of a building permit application will receive any comment. I would note for the record that I have provided the easement documents in relation to that easement. It permits, specifically permits laneways, access ways to properties, that type of thing. And I would also note that there's 6 properties immediately around it, many of them already developed, that are also impacted by, have that run through them or immediately adjacent to them. In fact, we've just approved, or just recently approved at 7590 and 7680 lots immediately adjacent to that easement, that if they're respective to concerns in adjacent properties, there never was any comment or any concerns raised. Lastly, the corridor itself is in excess of 350 feet wide. It's designed so as to encapsulate, or in my view, it's designed to encapsulate the entire easement corridor and setbacks relative to the wires. But we're happy to confirm that with respect to 526 if we can get comments out of Hydro. I would suggest a couple months. I will send out something immediately to the contacts that Mr. Gordon generously provided to us, and we'll try that route. But I don't hold out any hope that we'll, or a lot of hope that we'll actually receive adequate comments outside of a building permit application.
So your request then is to adjourn 526 for 60 days?
Yes, hopefully that will be adequate.
Okay. So that'll take us to probably the 6th of April. So I'd like to ask the panel for their agreement to adjourn application B00526 to April the 6th. All those in favor? So Mr. Shipman, we'll hear 525 in order. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other applications looking for an adjournment today? All right, so we'll now move on to hearing the applications in order, beginning with application number 1. Application number 1 has to do with 1435 Dunning Road. Mr. Williams, are you available? Mr. Williams, you're muted.
Can Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you. I would like to administer an oath concerning the sign posting on your property. Can you take that oath today?
Yes, I can.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time. Do you swear?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, the panel has reviewed all of your documentation that you submitted and are noting that there are no concerns from the planning department or conservation. I'd like to have the planning department confirm that they have no concerns or conditions. Mr. Gordon, can you confirm?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, we have no comments or concerns.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to ask the Conservation Authority partners if they have any comments in this application. I don't seem to think there are no RBCA.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, no, yeah,
Yes.
we have no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel then if they have any questions, comments, or concerns. Mr. Otto? Okay, Ms. Chandler?
None, thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
Looks good to me, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Vervoort?
No comments or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved. Mr. Williams, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And on to application number 2, having to do with 1840 and 1810 York's Corners Road. Michelle Perry, are you available?
Good morning. Yes, I'm available.
Thank you. Can you take the oath concerning the sign posting on the property this morning?
Yes, I can.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time. Do you swear?
I do swear.
Similarly, we have read all the information that's provided by you and the planning department and note that the planning department does not have any concerns. Can you confirm that, Mr. Harrigan?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. We have no concerns with this application, subject to the one requested condition.
And that's a lot line adjustment condition, Mr. Harrigan?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And the conservation partners, do they have any comments with respect to this application?
Mr. Chair, we don't have any comments or concerns on this application.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions or comments. Mr. Vervoort. No? Okay. Mr. Lewis?
Nothing, thanks.
Ms. Chandler?
No.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Otto?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd now like to ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. Your application is approved with one condition, Ms. Perry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now moving on to application number 3. Application number 3 has to do with 2885 Wood Kilton Road. Mr. Pence, are you available? Is it Pence? Yep.
Yes, I am.
Good morning, sir. Are you able to take the oath concerning the sign posting on the property this morning?
Yes, I am.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time. Do you swear?
I do.
Thank you very much. The committee notes that there are no concerns from planning. However, I would like to have planning confirm that. Mr. Gordon, can you please comment?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. We have no concerns with the application, subject to the conditions contained within our report.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to ask the conservation partners if they have any comments with respect to this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no concerns. We note there is a watercourse on the retained lands, but does not impact the proposed application.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pence, do you have any issues with the 7 conditions within planning's report?
No, I do not. We've reviewed the conditions and they are all satisfactory to us and our client.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask the panel for any comments they may have. Mr. Otto?
No, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Ms. Chandler?
No comments, thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
No, no comments or concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Vervoort?
No comments or concerns, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask the panel for approval of this application with 7 conditions. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved. Mr. Pence, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good day.
Next application we'll hear is application number 5. This is having to do with 695 Thomas A. Dolan Parkway. Ms. Zander, are you, sorry, application number 6, having to do with 695 Thomas A. Dolan Parkway. Ms. Zander, are you available?
Morning again.
Good morning again. Ms. Zander, are you able to take the oath concerning this, the signposting on the property?
I am not, but the property owner, Mr. Gillen, should be on the call.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think we're on application number 5. That was the adjournment request from planning, but the applicant wanted to go ahead. So just to
Oh, yes, on 525. We'll come back to that. I've just started with number 6 and we'll come back to 525 in just a minute.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't see them.
Mr. Chair, are we proceeding with the Ottawa Road?
Proceeding
29?
with number 6 right now. Yes. I'm looking for, is it Mason and Joan?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
We are here. We just can't get our faces here. Hold on a second.
That's okay. You're all good. We can hear you now. Can you, I'm going to need to administer an oath concerning the sign posting on your property. You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly legible and visible during that time?
Yes, I swear.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zander, I think we're fully aware of the contents of this application, and I'd like to ask Mr. Gordon if he's got any comments or concerns about this application. Mr. Gordon?
Apologies, Mr. Chair. Could we just confirm what address this is regarding?
695 Thomas A. Dolan Parkway.
No, that's the wrong address. It's
2170.
2170 Ottawa 29 that we're on.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Gillen's own 2170. It's number 5 on your agenda.
Yes, you're right. Sorry, 2170 Ottawa Road 29. Sorry, Mr. Gordon.
That's okay. I guess then the planning department objects to this application at this time. We would like to see it adjourned and the lot lines adjusted to both reduce the size to something that's more appropriate for a surplus farm dwelling severance. The current proposal is more than 4 times what's required. And we'd also like to see the lot lines adjusted away from the valley lands that are around the watercourse, as the new official plan does not support development within those lands when it can be avoided. And it's our opinion in this case that it can be avoided.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Sorry, Ms. Zander, I should have given you the opportunity to make a presentation. My apologies. I was getting lost in my screens here. Please go ahead and provide us with a brief description of your application.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have provided some photos to the staff at the committee office. So if they're able to share that, I would appreciate it. I will help. And although it's kind of backwards, I'm going to ask if staff can start on the 4th page of, that's the severance sketch, but there was a PDF with a few photos. So this is the perfect, thank you. this is the severed lot as proposed. It's about 1.8 hectares in size. It is a surplus farm dwelling severance under your official plan policies. And so we've put an air photo behind this so you can see the lay of the land, if you will. The house is set quite far back from the road, so that does consume some of the acreage that's included in this proposed severed lot. And then the orangey colored lines are indicating the contours of the property. So you can see on the west side of, kind of northwest side of this property, there are some contours which bring a slope down to the water course that's on the west side of this lot and onto the retained lands. And so Mr. Gillen will speak briefly as well, but you will see that lands on the west side are not accessible for agricultural use. They're not viable for agricultural use. They're not an area where Mr. Gillen would ever be able to farm or get equipment. They're not an area where he would ever have cattle because of the water course. So we have proposed to include them in the severed lot. And if staff don't mind going back in the package there's 3 photos I'd just like to speak to briefly. And then, so this is looking, all 3 photos are standing on Ottawa Road 29 and looking at the property. So this is the on the south side of the lot, looking up along the edge of what would be the severed lot. The retained lot would be on the right-hand side of this picture. So that's the kind of workshop in the foreground there that's consistent with our severance sketch. And then if you don't mind going to the next image, this is the north side of the property. And here you can see the gully, the kind of topography change here and the low elevation. This is the area that is proposed to be included in the severed lot, partly because there is a well located over here. And so my clients would like to capture that inside the severed lot. And you can see by the topography that there's really, this is not land that's accessible for agricultural purposes. And then there's one more image, if you don't mind. Thank you. This is just looking straight on the lot from the road. You can see the house is set quite far back from the road. So that is one of the reasons why the severed lot is large, is simply the house is set far back. So there's some land in front of the house that's captured inside the severed lot. So those are the images. If the chair is okay, perhaps Mr. Gillen would like to speak briefly to his proposal as well. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Gillen, would you like to say some words?
Tracy pretty much covered everything. Like she mentioned, we just struck the southwest. Sorry, we struck the northwest lot line of the proposed lot, basically because of the well. Like that was why we picked that lot line. So I as you can see by the pictures, like that side of, like, there's a good half of the proposed lot that is not viable for field work, that's for sure. And the other side, we've stayed very tight to the buildings on the other side. So I don't, other than what Tracy said, I don't have a whole lot more to add to it. And I mean, it is unfortunate that the house is back on the lot a piece, that it adds a bit of extra area to it. But by the same token, in this day and age, it's nice to have a little buffer. If you were living in the house, that you're not spraying the field too close to the proposed lot and that sort of thing too. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gillen. Ms. Zander, are you aware of the 3 conditions on this application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have reviewed the conditions and I don't have any concern.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask Conservation Partners for their comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Conservation Partners have reviewed the application. We do note the water courses along the perimeter of the proposed lot. We do not have flood or erosion mapping for either water course. And so our recommendation is a 30-meter setback. Given there are existing structures from the water course, it appears that can be maintained on the proposed lot.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. I'd like to ask the panel for their questions or comments. Ms. Chandler?
Yes, I understand the city's concern with respect to the size of the lot. I wonder if the applicant would consider, like, it's been drawn square, so that's fine. And certainly the well does need to be on the lot being severed. But is there any possibility of considering a less regular lot line going from front to back on the west side that would follow a contour along the valley rather than a straight line going back that provides little chunks of the water course on each property side?
Yes, I think we could, like we said before, the land is not very much used to either the potential lot or us as a farmer. So it doesn't mean a whole lot if the lot line is changed a bit to accommodate the city.
I would be interested to hear from Ms. Zander and Mr. Gordon whether they think that's a good idea and whether that would perhaps change the city's perspective on this.
Ms. Zander, do you want to comment first?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, obviously we can certainly change the shape of this lot. My recommendation would be that we make kind of square lines. So rather than trying to find follow a contour, we might just kind of step in and then go straight back and square it off. It's certainly easier for a surveyor to do that than to try to follow a contour line. But yes, I think it's certainly possible to make the back part of this lot narrower. If Mr. Gillen's agreeable to that, my office can certainly do that.
Okay. Mr. Gordon, do you have any comments on Ms. Chandler's suggestion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We would be agreeable to exploring changing that lot line. I believe, if I could see the sketch, I believe it's the north west lot line, but that kind of is along the water course. If that could be moved first to not bisect the stream, and second to reduce the amount of land that's on the severed parcel, that would be a positive outcome. We recognize that this is, as has been mentioned, the house sits far back, and in some cases with surplus farm dwellings, we'd usually look for kind of a flagpole lot, but in this case, given the location of the well, that's not entirely possible. So if we can just angle that lot line along the water course to reduce the lot area and stay away from the water course, that would be agreeable.
Yes, Ms. Chandler.
Just follow up on that briefly. So my concern is the city has an objection in terms of this lot right now. And if we were to move ahead with an approval for these contours, you are open to an appeal from the city. And I would much rather, like, it's a very reasonable application to sever this lot. I would much rather see this go ahead with an agreement that the city can support something. So I would have to give this back to you, Mr. Chair, and to consult with Mr. Gordon, whether we can consider approving this on the understanding that Zander and the owners and the city will be able to agree upon a lot line. I don't think it would be significant enough for a recirculation, or if this is something we have to stand down on until a new lot line is drawn.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chandler. I'm going to take some comments from the balance of the panel before we move on to that. Mr. Otto, any questions or comments?
No, I can't see what's wrong with the application as it stands, other than that the city is opposed to it. It appears to me, yes, it's a little larger than it should be. But what difference does it make if the line is moved over and the stream is avoided? It's not going to change. It's still there. And the owner that would, the retained portion then would still have that, and he still wouldn't be able to farm it. So I think we're splitting hairs on this one, but I agree with Ms. Chandler. If we can come to an agreement that both parties agree to, then that's probably the best way to do it. But I think it should go ahead as it is.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. Mr. Lewis?
Is there any photographs of the storage building that's on there?
Sorry, Steve, I didn't catch that.
the storage building at the back that you have there, is there any photograph? Is that a good building or is that something that should be demolished anyway?
You mean the big barn building or
Yeah.
the one to the side?
The one at the back.
Yeah, it's a good barn. It's we're not presently using it for, it doesn't meet the standards of what would be used present day. But structurally, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I see the pit. I see it there now. Okay, thank you. That's all I was wondering.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vervoort, any questions or comments?
Well, it seems to me that if the applicant is agreeing to move the lot line slightly to still incorporate the well, but so the lot line doesn't bisect the water course, that's generally what we try and do. It seems to me that the best solution would be just to adjourn this to the next meeting, and that should be pretty easy for the city and the applicant to agree on moving the lot line slightly, the northwest lot line. I'm a bit uncomfortable trying to approve something when we don't have the exact measurements of the or the exact sketch of the lot. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Vervoort. My comment is similar to Terry Otto's. I think that the way the application is written today, it's not a really big deal. I would support it as it is today. Making those minor changes to follow the water course just costs the applicant a little bit more money, and I don't think it's necessary. So to that end, we'll first deal with the suggestion by Mr. Vervoort to adjourn this application to will the next meeting be enough time for you, Ms. Zander, if this was something that you'd like to consider?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I can get a revised sketch back to staff fairly quickly. Can you advise, does this need to be recirculated, Mr. Chair, or it's a simple change that would just come back to the committee?
I think it's just going to come back to the committee. You're not making a modification that is outside outside the purview of the committee right now. So I think it's fine with not having to be recirculated. So to that end, I'd like to ask panel members to adjourn this application to the next meeting, which would be February the 16th. All those in favor of adjourning this application to that time, please raise your hands. All those in favor, all those not in favor of adjourning this application, please raise your hands. So the next question is, I would like to ask the panel for approval of this application with the 3 conditions noted in the planning's report.
One question.
Yes,
sir. Question for me. We talk about the line following the creek. I understand how it's better to have the creek all on one man's property for to deal with. What if you just do a straight line to the back corner and keep all the creek on Mr. Gillen's side, and it's a straight line to survey. You probably got to move it in. What's the back of the lot? 85, I'm guessing you have to move that in about 15, 20 meters at the back, just a straight line, boom. Can everybody live with that?
But there is a well at the front end of the property, Mr.
I know, but stay on the side of the well, but instead of going straight back, come back on about a 15-degree angle. I just think it's a lot easier to keep all the water front on one person's property. Why I'm saying this, I've seen instances before where one guy is part of the creek and the other guy's the next part, and this guy's not happy about what this guy's doing back and forth. You know what I'm saying? Makes more peace.
Yes, Mr. Vervoort.
Well, I think that's what we're talking about, adjourning it 2 weeks so we can just do that adjustment and then go ahead and then approve it. But I'd like to see where the adjustment is, I think, before I approve it. That was my only comment. So I don't know, maybe Ms. Zander is agreeable to that. She's the applicant, or her clients are the applicants.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we have talked about doing what Member Lewis has suggested, which is to keep the front corner and just rotate the side lot line slightly so that we stay outside of the water course but still capture the well. So it's hard for me to give you the acreage of what that will look like on the fly here, but my clients are agreeable to a minor adjustment to avoid the water course, and that will result in a slightly smaller lot. So I'm in the committee's hands whether you can visualize that and we resolve that with staff, or you wish to adjourn and we come back with a sketch. at the next hearing.
Okay, I'd like to ask the panel one more time if they'd like to adjourn this application to the next meeting, and that would be February the 16th. All those in favor of adjournment to February 16th? The application is adjourned to February the 16th. Thanks, Mr. Lewis. Thanks, Mr. Zander and Mr. Gillum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're on to number 6, having to do with 695 Thomas Dolan Parkway. And Ms. Zander, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are you able to take the oath about the sign posting on the property?
I am not Mr. Chair, but I believe my client Julie Delahunt is joining the meeting today.
I see her name. Ms. Delahunt, there you are. Need to be unmuted.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Delahunt. Are you able to take the oath concerning the sign posting on your property today?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
I do.
So, Ms. Zander, this application doesn't seem to have any issues with the planning department. I wonder if Mr. Gordon can confirm that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. Subject to the conditions contained in our report, we have no concerns with the application.
And there are 8 conditions in your report.
That is correct.
Okay. Ms. Zander, are you okay with those 8 conditions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have reviewed the conditions and have no concerns.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Conservation Partners if they've got any comments concerning this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Conservation Authority has reviewed the application and the environmental impact study submitted with it. We note a small portion of the property is located within the 30-meter setback from the identified wetland, but that has been included in order to utilize an existing access way, and the lot lines have been modified to maintain the setback to the greatest extent possible. We do note that the building envelope will be maintaining the 30-meter setback from the wetland, and so we don't object to the application.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. I'd like to ask the panel for questions or comments. Mr. Vervoort, any questions or comments?
Just with respect to condition number 8 for the planning department, I'm just not exactly sure what the issue is there. If maybe I could get a bit of clarity on that.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The condition is to do with an existing structure on what will become the retained land. And there's just some question of whether what the use of that building is, and what it's currently used for will determine whether that lot is in compliance with the bylaw with that structure. If it's not in compliance, then there are options that the applicant can either remove the building or seek a bylaw amendment to legalize that use.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions or concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, any questions or comments?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Otto?
No, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chandler?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Ms. Zander. Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you.
Now we'll proceed to application number 7, having to do with 7615 Soldiers Line Road and application B00525. Mr. Shipman, are you available?
I am, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Shipman, are you able to take the oath concerning the signposting this morning?
Yes, I am.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, as instructed, and was clearly visible and legible during that time. You swear?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please proceed and give us a brief description of your application, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If perhaps the coordinator could bring up the image submitted, my application, hopefully the aerial image, that's the sketch. I wonder if you have the aerial image. If not, it's not the end of the world. Okay, I'll leave it at that. This, what you're seeing here on the screen now is in fact the sketch for the one we're adjourning, 526. The sketch for the severance under consideration is actually represented by the dash line next to this one. So we have standard rural property on this one. The house and accessory buildings, well and septic are all contained well within the proposed severance boundaries. No, sorry, not that one. That's the images we submitted for our minimum distance separation calculations. It's one has some red and blue lines on it. I'm sorry, Madam Coordinator. No, none of those. And in any event, I'll continue. So as I say, the severance is on approximately 1.4 hectares around the existing house and buildings. There is no conflict with the zoning bylaw or official plan or natural heritage features, hazard lands, anything like that associated with this severance. It's fairly straightforward. The retained lands would be quite a large parcel in excess of 19 hectares. Slightly smaller. There's the sketch for the severance, yes. As you can see, again, the retained parcel is quite large. Now, in reference to the planners, I guess the one relevant concern in respect to this about where a building may be located on the retained parcel, I'd point out that, again, it's a very large parcel. And there's more than adequate buffering. As you can see, if you've seen the image that I submitted along with the application containing the red and green lines, it outlines the severances and the setbacks to adjacent barns and stuff. There's adequate buffering all around in the terms of heavy tree lines along the property line relative to that small exception in the bottom left corner. And of course, the balance of the property is mixed haylands and bush. So there's plenty of room on the retained parcel on which to locate a house and provide adequate buffering. Indeed, it's the applicant's son's wish to actually locate a house back closer to the Jock River in that bush back there. Point out that the property immediately to the east, that is indeed where the house on that property is located. So I don't think that's a real concern about where the house might be located on the retained parcel. In reference to the hydro line, as mentioned before, the house is already there. The hydro easement impacts this lot to a very small degree, maybe a little triangle 5 to 10 meters down in the corner. Not a concern. The hydro corridor itself is in excess of 350 feet wide. Just in commenting relative to any concerns that might be raised by setbacks on the application next door that's being adjourned, any setback would have to probably be in excess of 3 to 4 times the height of the wires in the hydro corridor in order to provide or create issues relative to a building envelope on that second application, which we're adjourning. So we certainly don't anticipate any setback issues on the neighboring property or the neighboring application that could give rise to the rear line being, have to extend that other application farther out, insofar as that's even relevant to this application. So we have, say, a pretty standard rural severance application here around the existing house and buildings. And we've certainly not identified any concerns vis-a-vis the zoning bylaw or official plan.
Thank you, Mr. Shipman. I'd like to ask Mr. Gordon to make some comments concerning this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was mentioned earlier, we do have a concern regarding the hydro easement and setbacks that applies to all 3 lots. I do agree that the severance that we're discussing currently is the least impacted by that concern. I would say, though, that in instances like this where the lot lines of one lot are potentially going to have to change, it's planning's preference that all of the applications be heard together, because sometimes alterations are interrelated and there's less flexibility once one consent goes ahead. That said, we do have a further concern, as was mentioned in planning's report, just about the lot lines that were selected here between the hydro easement. Oh, sorry, this is in reference to where a house could be built on the retained lands. Between the hydro easement to the east and the narrow frontage to the west, basically a house would have to be located further back into the property. And we have concerns about this configuration in general when applications like this come up, because you end up with someone's front yard being behind someone's rear yard where their amenity area is. So there are concerns about privacy.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. And there are 5 conditions if this application is approved. Is that correct, Mr. Gordon?
Let me just check that. That is correct.
Okay. And Mr. Shipman, you're aware of these 5 conditions and you're okay with them?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just a couple of comments. Conditions number 1 and 2 are standard. Condition number 3 is more of an urban condition. I'm concerned with the issues related to clearing that condition in the rural context. I think it's quite obvious for all concerned here that we're dealing with great large properties here. There is no sewage pipes other than the existing septic bed, which if it were to conflict with the lines, it would have to be located in the bush, in the heavy bush to the east of this property. So we just view that condition as a nuisance to try and clear it at a later date. The hydro for this property is right up the laneway. We've ensured that it's not going to conflict with the access, insofar as that's not even mentioned or part of that condition. Condition number 5 relates to the well and septic circumstances, and I would point out that the severed lot here has an existing well and septic system that's fully contained within the requirements of the OS, the septic system office, and the zoning bylaw. So yeah, the well condition, I guess, would not apply to the severed lot in this case.
Mr. Gordon, we've had some issues with conflicting concerns that some urban and rural people have with item number 3, independent services. Can you just highlight for Mr. Shipman exactly what you require for that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have responded to feedback that it was previously written to reflect urban conditions, and the engineering team has revised the wording. I would note it mentions parcel has its own independent private sewage system. We generally don't have private sewage systems in the urban area, so we have changed this to reflect septic systems. And in vacant lots like this, we still have a concern about drainage. We don't want lots draining over each other. So it's a relatively simple condition to clear. We basically require a sketch that shows where the existing well and septic are, where well and septics may be located on the vacant lands, and just general flows of stormwater. That can just be provided as an annotated sketch on the survey.
Okay. And with respect to item number 5, can you clarify a thought for Mr. Shipman too?
Yes, so this report was written in response to both severances. So that condition is basically to apply to all the lands. And it's just to ensure that there's adequate quality and quantity of water, and we still need a septic impact for the already developed land.
So this one actually could really be removed as it relates to application 525, because it's already got a well and septic on it.
I suppose that does make sense if we're considering them independently. Yeah, because we generally don't register things on condition on title of already developed lands. I would say the exception is when something of interest to a homeowner comes up. So for instance, if we note that, or if the Hydro-G notes that there's high sodium in the water, we would still put that on a previously developed parcel, because it's of interest to potential purchasers for their own health to know if there's something that is allowable in the water, but still higher than usual. So
you recommending that, Mr. Gordon, 5 remain?
I would recommend that it remain.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shipman, do you have any comments?
Yes, first back in respect to condition 3, I would point out that our sketch provided as part of the application does include location for the well and septic. In the notes, it also indicates that they're in excess of 15 meters distant from any proposed severance lines. Again, if they were to conflict with be only the eastern proposed severance line, they would have to be located in the bush portion of the property. So we do not view that condition and as relevant. And again, with respect to condition 5, or just back to condition 3, I'd also point out that that's not an easy condition to clear, insofar as a professional location of the septic system and tying into a survey, that type of thing is going to be, my experience is at least $1,000 to get the engineer out to probe the ground, and it can't be done in the wintertime. We know where the septic is based on the applicant's indication on the ground. So in the past, we've had approved many severances of this type, wherein we've just simply indicated the location of the septic bed relative to the proposed property lines. When it starts to get close, indeed, we do need to get a professional locate on the septic bed to ensure that we have the proper setbacks, that type of thing. That's not the case here. In respect to condition 5, I just again point out that we have an existing septic system on the property. They're in functioning order. That condition is not relevant in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Shipman. Mr. Lewis, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. As of condition 3, I agree. We probably don't need it. As for condition 5, we do realize we are creating a new lot here. the retained parcel can be built on. Just ask me to keep that in mind. And as for the one we adjourned, I don't know if the hydro lines, I haven't been down there in a while ago on this, which side of the road, but is it a good idea to have driveways or entrance ways that go underneath hydro towers? Just a question I got. Thank you.
Who's that question for?
Just a comment for when we come forward with the next one. I'm just not sure it's a good idea to put entrance ways under hydro lines. Other than that, I support the 525 as it is without number 3.
Thank you. Mr. Vervoort, any questions or comments?
I don't think condition number 3 is very onerous. It's just asking confirmation that there's an independent well and septic servicing the existing house, and that the drainage for the property is contained within the property line. I don't really have an issue with the application, and I don't have an issue with the conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Otto.
Well, I agree with Mr. Shipman. I don't think number 3 needs to be in there, and number 5 I don't think needs to be in there. But if it'll speed things up, I'm agreeable to either one, because verbally, all they have to do is provide a sketch, which has already been provided for number 3. So I'm easy either way.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chandler.
Well, one of the fees that's paid when people apply for a severance covers the review by the Ottawa Septic System Office. And they do look at all of these applications. And as far as I can tell, there were no comments from them. So I don't have a concern with respect to the septic system or the well setback. They're pretty good at taking a look at that. So I agree that condition number 3, I don't see the purpose of it. I'm all right with the rest of it, and I'm okay with the application in general.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd now like to ask the panel for approval of this application without.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Gordon has got his hand up.
Oh, didn't see it. Thank you very much. Mr. Gordon, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just add that we're looking at more than just the well and septic here. We're looking at stormwater drainage and some pump outlets. We would just want that information added. And to Member Vervoort's point, it's not a very onerous sketch. We don't require it to be done by an engineer. And it's really just for information purposes. So we would maintain our request that condition be included.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. So I would like to now ask the panel for their approval of this application without condition number 3. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved without condition number 3. Thank you very much, Mr. Shipman.
Thank you.
Now moving on to application number 8. Application number 8 has to do with 9 Burrows Road. Mr. Andre Thériault, are you available?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Thériault. Are you available to take the oath concerning the sign posting on your property, sir?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and is clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harrigan, can you please comment on behalf of the city on this application?
Thank you. Just to confirm for you, Mr. Chair, my mic cut out there for a second. We are talking about 9 Burrows Road, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. The planning department has no concerns with this application. We do note that a tree inventory report has been submitted as part of this application. And it does note that none of the adjacent trees on the next door property that's closest to this reduced interior yard setback will be impacted. So because of the preservation of vegetation, we have no concerns.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the conservation partners if they have any comments. So I believe that there are no comments from the conservation partners. To that end, I'd like to ask the panel for comments, questions, or concerns. Mr. Otto?
No comments.
Mr. Lewis?
None.
Mr. Vervoort?
No comments or concerns. Thank you.
Ms. Chandler?
I did have one question. The neighbor adjacent, number 11, that's where the setback, reduced setback is being requested on that lot line. Did the owner or applicant receive any feedback from them, speak to them?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did meet with the neighbor on a few occasions, and he's all agreeable with, we didn't have any negative outcome with the neighbor. It was all approved.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any further comments.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Mr. Terrio. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now on to application number 9, having to do with 20 Cedar Row Court. Cedar Row Court. Ms. Mariani, are you available? I see that you're there, but I don't. There you are. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. I'd like to administer an oath concerning the signposting on your property. Can I do that today?
Yes, you can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
I do.
And similar to the several of the applications today, there's no concerns by the planning department, but I'd like to have Mr. Harrigan confirm that, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, you are correct. The planning department has no concerns with this application.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask conservation partners if they have any questions or comments or concerns about this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no concerns with the application.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ogden. I'd like to ask the panel for their questions or comments. Ms. Chandler?
I have no comments. Thank you.
Mr. Otto?
No comments. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
None.
Mr. Vervoort?
None, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Ms. Mariani. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
On to application number 10, having to do with 2004 Old Carp Road. Mr. West, are you available?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. West. Can you take the oath concerning the sign posting on the property?
Yes, I can.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time. Do you swear?
I do swear.
Thank you very much. I note that there doesn't seem to be any concerns from the planning department. Mr. Harrigan, can you confirm that?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no concerns with this application, subject to the requested conditions.
And there are 7 conditions, Mr. Harrigan?
That is correct.
Mr. West, are you in agreement with those 7 conditions?
We're in agreement with most of the conditions. I'd just like to speak quickly to condition number 6, if I may.
Sure, please proceed.
So condition number 6 requires that the owners enter into, shall prepare a noise and vibration study. And the reason for this is due to the proximity to the railway line, which is at the rear of the property. The property is about 150 or so meters in depth, so quite a little bit of ways to go until that railway line. I note that in the official plan, the study area for a vibration study is 75 meters from a railway right-of-way. So when read in conjunction with condition number 8, which allows us to identify a development envelope on the property with respect to environmental impacts, that development envelope will likely be outside of the 75-meter study area for vibration study. So our question is the requirement for the vibration study truly required if the development envelope is going to be outside of the 75-meter study area for vibration studies?
Mr. Harrigan, can you answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just hold on 1 second just so I pull up my notes for this to make sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that is correct, that under the official plan in which this was reviewed, that the noise study is 75 meters away. I would ask that the condition in its entirety remain intact, and if once we confirm that the development envelope is in fact more than 75 meters away from there, which I do believe it will be, then it would just be a noise study, not a vibration study. So if it is agreeable, we would be agreeable to modifying the condition slightly to say a noise study and noise study and then a vibration study if it is in fact required. But this is something that I would like to 100% confirm with the engineering staff, just because they did initially mention this too, and I would like to ensure that we are following the official plan.
Okay, good for you, Mr. West.
Thank you. No, we appreciate municipal staff's ability to look at that condition. Thank you.
Great. And I'd like to ask our conservation partners if they've got any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We note that on the separate lands, there is a water course, but that the proposed building envelope can maintain a 30-meter setback if it is proposed along the road frontage, as discussed.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. I'd like to ask the panel now for some comments or questions or concerns. Mr. Vervoort.
No comments or concerns, subject to the clarification on condition number 6 discussed by Mr. Harrigan.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis. Sorry, sir, we did not hear you.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Chandler?
I have no comments, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Otto?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application with all 7 conditions, with the modification suggested by Mr. Harrigan on condition number 6. All those in favor of this application, please raise your hands. This application is approved. Thank you very much, Mr. West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you. So I believe that concludes. No, we still have one more. One more is having to do with application number 11, having to do with 4900 Frank Kenny Road. Ms. Zander, are you available?
Thank you, Mr.
Good
Chair.
morning. Good morning again. Yeah, still here. Can you take the signposting oath?
I believe, Mr. Chair, your staff indicated they had received the signage oath for this application already.
I think we did it last time. That's
If not, Mr. Kenny's also here.
Okay, that's all good. So we'll proceed then. Planning's noting that there are no concerns. I'd like to have Mr. Gordon confirm that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. Planning has no concerns with the application subject to the conditions within our report, and we appreciate the applicant's efforts to reduce the lot size.
Thank you. You're aware, Ms. Sander, of those 3 conditions?
Yes, I am. We have no concerns with the conditions.
Thank you. And I note that there's some changes to some dimensions, specifically the irregular depth was 96 meters, now is 64.
Yeah, so as requested or discussed at the last meeting, I worked with Mr. Kenny to revise the size and shape of the lot. I would note the sketch that was attached to the public notice on your online agenda did not reflect the new sketch, but I hope that the committee has that and can see it's a sketch dated January 17th from my office that shows a smaller lot. So the staff report today should reflect that smaller lot.
So those numbers, again, we're reducing the irregular depth from 96 to 64 meters.
That's correct.
The lot area will be approximately 6264 square meters.
Yes, that's correct.
And the retained lands will contain a lot area of 441,983 square meters.
Yes, that's correct. And that is the correct sketch on the screen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel for questions or comments. Mr. Vervoort.
No comments or concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis.
No problem.
Mr. Otto.
No problem. Thank you.
Ms. Chandler.
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application with the three conditions and the modifications read into the record on the sizes and distances. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Ms. Zander. Mr. Kenny, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. I believe that concludes our business for today. Thank you, everyone, for your help, and have a great couple of weeks till we see each other again. Thank you.